Before we get started, I want you to turn to your neighbor and answer this question. Has there been a situation recently when you really wanted to be in control, but you weren't? Has there been a situation recently where you really wanted to be in control, but you weren't? Turn to your neighbor, talk for about 30 seconds. So I don't know how you guys answered that. For me, I'll be very honest. For my answer to this question, it was when we were at Move, and it was during the dodgeball tournament. Okay, it was the first day of the dodgeball tournament, and I was in that arena for at least 30 minutes, and I got to watch all of 2 dodgeball matches take place. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I know that I can run a dodgeball tournament better than this is being ran right now. And I wish I could have been in control of that situation. But what about you? Is there a situation recently that you wish that you could have been in control? It's been several weeks since we've had a normal Engage. A lot happened in June, and so I want to just quickly recap kind of where we've been with this series before we move on to what's tonight. But this series, again, is called Upside Down because of the way that Jesus flips the disciples and our worlds upside down by giving us a different way to live, different expectations on how we should live. Week 1, we talked about being poor in spirit, and we talked about that means that we need to rely and depend on God. Whenever the last time that we had one of these was, it was about mourning over our sin, and we talked about that we need to recognize sin for what it is, and then also come to the point where we hate sin. And tonight, we're going to continue in this series, and it's going to be very different, okay? So this is going to be a very short message compared to what it normally is, and really the purpose is to launch you guys into your small groups. So small groups is going to be extended time. You're going to have a lot more time than you normally do, and so I'm not going to talk very long. But tonight, we're going to be, again, in the Beatitudes, and our verse for tonight is Matthew 5:5. Okay, this verse says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." Now, my guess is that this word meek is not something that is probably part of your normal daily vocabulary. And it's actually a difficult word to translate from the original language to English because we have a lot of different words that could be used as this word. And so the NIV translated to meek like we see here, but the NLT version would say humble. The NASB version would say gentle. And so there's a lot of different translations and different words that we can use for this word. But a really great definition and kind of a picture that we get from this word is that meekness is strength under control. Okay, so being meek is having strength under control. Meekness is not weakness. Okay, so being meek is not a sign of weakness, but it's strength under control. Anyone in here ride horses? You do? Nice. Anyone else? Has anyone else ever ridden a horse? Okay, so actually a lot of us. So horses, like, they're beasts of animals, right? Like horses are absolutely huge. Like their legs would just destroy me. They're huge. If you're up close to a horse, you can see how strong horses actually are. And I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily scared of horses, but I have like an appropriate fear and respect for horses because I know what they can do and I know how strong they are. Well, a great word picture for this word meek is a horse that has been tamed. Okay, and so think about a horse and how strong and fierce and how much damage they can do. But then when horses have been saddled or they've been tamed, they become meek. They display strength under control because now whoever's sitting on the saddle is the one in control, right? The horse is no longer in control. The one that's sitting on the saddle, the rider, is the one that's in control. And so this idea of meekness, really what this is meekness puts God in the driver's seat. Okay, meekness puts God in the driver's seat of our life. If we're to become meek people, then it means that we allow God to be in control. We allow Him to call the shots. We allow Him to steer the ship. We allow Him to be in control. He's the one in the driver's seat of our life. I read this quote earlier this week, and I thought it was really good. It says this: meekness toward God is that disposition of spirit in which we accept His dealings with us as good and therefore without disputing or resisting. Now, I had to read that like 5 or 6 times and really think about it. But really what this quote is saying is that becoming meek is getting to the point in our life when we allow God to do his work and do what he does best. And then being okay with that. It's getting to the point where we trust God to be in the driver's seat. We trust him to be in control and do what he's promised to do. And then we're okay with whatever happens after that because we trust that he's good. For me, this past season of my life has been challenging because there's been so much change, a lot of change that I've never been through or experienced before. I've had a lot of different decisions that I've had to make, a lot of big decisions, and really I'm walking down a road that I've never been down before. And so for me, it's been really easy in this season to just want to take control of different situations. And a few months ago, I don't know if I've shared this or not, I might have, but God really spoke to me through his word a couple months ago, specifically for this season that I'm in, and he reminded me of 3 things, and really 3 characteristics of himself. It's that God is good, God is faithful, and God is sovereign, or he's in control. And those have been kind of the 3 things that I have just been holding on to throughout this past season, that he's good, that he's faithful, and that he's in control, because I have desperately needed to be reminded of these things. And here's why I share this. It's because when we allow God to be in the driver's seat of our life, it means that we allow God to do his work, and it means that we have to trust God's goodness and his control. All right, if we're gonna take our hands off and we're gonna allow God to lead and be in control, then we also have to trust that he's good and he knows what he's doing. We have to trust his word when he says that he won't fail us and he won't leave us, that he has a plan for us, that he's in control, that he's going to provide for us. We have to trust that our life is in better hands when God is in the driver's seat, when he's the one that's calling the shots. I shared this a couple weeks ago before it happened, but I went skydiving recently, and it was one of the coolest things that I've ever done in my entire life, and it's really hard to describe it and put it into words, but it was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had. And it was a tandem skydive, okay, so I'm not just jumping out by myself, but I have this guy, an instructor that's strapped to me, basically, and so we jump out together. But as we're on this little plane, this is the plane that we fly up in, and probably the plane ride was scarier than the rest of it. But as we're flying up in this little plane to about 13 or 14,000 feet, the first half I'm just looking out the window and thinking, what am I doing right now? But as we get to like the second half of the flight, he starts to strap us in together. Okay, so I'm sitting there and he's hooking us up and doing all his stuff. And that second half of the plane ride, even though we're getting higher and higher, and I'm literally sitting right next to the door that they're about to open, and then we're about to jump out. But that second half of the plane ride was probably the most peace that I had the entire day. And I had so much peace because I knew at this moment I am no longer in control of what happens. Okay, because he's strapping himself to me, that means that he's in control. I don't have to do anything. I just get to enjoy the ride. He's going to do everything, and he's going to take care of it. And that's exactly the way that I want it to be, right? I don't want to be in charge of anything. I don't want to have to figure out when to pull the chute or when to do this or that. Like, that's his job. He knows what he's doing, and I want him to be in complete control of the situation. It would be foolish of me at any point on this plane ride to look back and be like, look, buddy, I know you've done this about 1,000 times, but I think I can take it from here. Right? That would make no sense. He's the one that should be in control. He's been there. He knows the plan. He knows the procedures. He knows exactly what to do. My job is just to listen and to do what he says. Now, how different is that from our relationship with God? God's in control. He knows what he's doing. He knows the best plans. He has your best interests at heart. He loves you more than anything in the entire world, but he doesn't just love you. He's also in control, and he's powerful enough to do something about it. That was where the connection of those 3 characteristics that I shared, that was when it really hit me differently, when I realized that God's not only good, right? He's good. He loves us. He's for us, but he's also sovereign. He's in control of everything. So you put those 2 things together, he loves us more than anything else, but he also is powerful enough to do something about it. And when I realized that, it changed everything for me. So we have to let God do his job, right? We have to let God have the driver's seat. We have to humble ourselves and allow God to do what he does best. But now another question that ties into all of this is, are you able to find contentment in the situation that you find yourself in? Because trusting God's goodness and control over a situation means that we're able to be content in that situation. Because we trust him. We believe that he has what's best for us in store. But oftentimes when we're not content because things aren't how we want them to be, or things aren't going exactly how we would have planned them to be or how we would have thought that they should have been, oftentimes in those moments when we're not content, that's when we want to take control back. Because we start to doubt that he knows what he's doing. And we think that we might know what's best for us. So are you allowing God to do his job, or are you trying to do his job for him? Who's calling the shots in your life? Who's in control? Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And the ones that are willing to take their hands off the wheel and trust God to be in control are the ones who will actually get what they really desire.